Hey everyone, did you know that over 90% of you watching right now haven't hit that subscribe button? If you enjoy our content, take a second to subscribe. It's free and it really helps us keep bringing you great stories every day. I never planned to fall in love the night we tossed our graduation caps into the June sky. But Alice laughed, leaned in, and kissed me before the confetti even touched the ground. She was my first kiss, my first real heartbeat skipping love. And soon the question, how long have you two been together? Stopped feeling like math. It was just always. First dates became lazy Saturdays. Saturdays turned into shared apartments. And one spring afternoon, a pair of silver rings slipped onto our fingers and promised forever. 6 years of marriage later, I still sometimes paused in the kitchen, watched the morning sun crown her hair, and thought, how on earth did I get this lucky? Lucky, though, is a tricky word. We argued like any couple. Some nights we drifted to opposite edges of the mattress, stubborn and silent, but sunrise usually pulled us back. Alice was home, the one place the world felt steady. We dreamed about children someday, not right away, and every maybe later carried its own sweet hope. Month after month we tried, sometimes buoyed by optimism, sometimes fearing the test lines would stay stubbornly blank. Still, we believed in later. What I never told many people, what Alice only half understood, was that 7 years earlier, I survived a tornado in Joplin, Missouri. The May 2011 storm erased my parents' house while I slept on a friend's couch across town. By dawn, the neighborhood looked like a dropped puzzle, pieces scattered to oblivion. Therapists named it post-traumatic stress. I just called it shadows that never quite cleared. Sudden gusts made my stomach flip. Closing a window felt like locking myself inside a memory. Pills dulled the edges but never stitched the tear. Then, almost a year ago, a late-night scroll landed me on an article about artificial intelligence chatbots. Someone joked they listened better than exes and cost less than therapy. Curiosity won. I typed, I can't sleep. Storms chase me when I shut my eyes. The screen replied, tell me more. And something unclenched. Most nights after Alice drifted off, I stayed up tapping keys. Safer somehow than saying words aloud. I wrote about fear, about the way silence could press on my chest, about how love felt both anchor and weight. The bot never sighed, never glanced at the clock. It helped. One night I mentioned Alice. Simple facts at first. How she'd grown quieter about having children, how she'd cut her hair short and sun-kissed, started wearing brighter clothes, stayed late at the office more often. Maybe I'm reading too much into a new boss and looming deadlines, I typed. The reply flashed almost instantly. Those changes can indicate emotional distancing or the involvement of another person. I reread the sentence until the letters blurred, closed the laptop, and poured water with a hand that trembled. The photo on our fridge, Alice and me on Lake Michigan's shoreline, laughing like the future couldn't crack, felt suddenly fragile. She was in Seattle on business for 3 days. I texted nothing, called no one, and just sat in the living room listening to the refrigerator hum. An hour later, I reopened the chat. Explain, I wrote. The bot listed patterns, new appearance, reduced intimacy, sudden schedule shifts. It's not proof, it finished, but worth attention. So you think she's cheating? I asked. I think you fear she might be, came the reply. I shut the screen, but the thought kept tugging. I searched her dresser for anything strange, receipts, keys, lip color I hadn't seen, found nothing but familiar scents and folded sweaters. Still, the thread had been pulled. When Alice returned that Friday, it was nearly 9. I heard her key catch in the top lock, that little hitch she always meant to fix. She wheeled her suitcase inside, phone still in hand. Hey, she said with a quick smile, I'm home. How was Seattle? I asked, voice level though my pulse wasn't. Fine, exhausted though. Delayed flights, endless slides. One dinner with the team and a bar afterward, but I ducked out early. The words felt rehearsed, but I nodded, kissed her temple, watched her hurry toward the shower. The next afternoon, she came through the door hours earlier than usual. Something was wrong the moment the knob turned. Her coat hung crooked, her hair a wind-whipped mess, and a thin red mark blazed across her cheek. Bruises, faint but unmistakable, ringed her forearms. I stood so fast the couch shifted. Alice, what? I'm fine, she answered, sidestepping me. That isn't fine. I reached gently for her sleeve. She flinched. My chest tightened. Slipped on wet stairs in the parking garage, she said. Her tone was flat, eyes distant. In sneakers? I asked quietly. She blinked, then gathered herself. I don't want to talk about it, Sam. I just need a shower. She walked down the hall, avoiding mirrors as if afraid of her own reflection. Wet stairs didn't leave finger-shaped bruises. Someone had hurt her, and fear had followed her. Home. The next morning, she said she needed a few office hours, a quick lunch with colleagues. I won't be long. Let me drive, I offered. She forced a breezy smile. No need. Really? I watched her drive away, waited a beat, then followed. Part of me felt ridiculous, stalking my own wife, but worry overpowered pride. I parked across the street from her building and waited. 1 hour slid into 2. Just as doubt gnawed loud enough to turn the key and leave, a tall woman stormed into view. Chestnut hair whipped around her face. A long black coat fluttered like a flag of anger. She marched straight toward our sedan. Something glinted in her fist. A nail. Before my brain fully processed the image, she crouched and raked the metal across the rear fender, slow and deliberate. White paint curled like shavings, forming letters. 403 Garden, Ho. Cold rushed through me. Hey! I bellowed, sprinting across the asphalt. She spun, eyes wide, then dashed to her own car. Tires screeched as she shot through the first intersection. I followed, adrenaline drowning second thoughts. At the second corner, I swerved hard, braked, and blocked her path. She slammed to a stop. I yanked her door open. She shrieked, tried to shove me back. What is wrong with you? I shouted. Who are you? Let me go, she snapped, but I held her forearm. Tell me who you are. Breaths ragged, she met my gaze. I'm Diana, Jack's wife. Jack, Alice's new boss. The name thudded in my ears. Diana's voice shook, anger and exhaustion entwined. Your wife and my husband have been seeing each other for months. I caught them once, made him promise it was finished. Then I heard about Seattle. He came home with lipstick on his collar. Classic, right? So I confronted Alice yesterday. That's where the marks came from. She looked away, jaw tight. I regret a lot, but not making her face me. A rusty silence filled the car-lined street while the engine pinged between us. The bruises, the lie about stairs, the distance, everything snapped into grim alignment. For what it's worth, Diana went on softer now. I have proof. Messages, photos. It hurts to see, but you deserve the truth. I followed her to a modest brick house. The yard looked unloved, grass pushing through cracked walkways, grief wearing a gardener's gloves. Inside, she offered coffee. I shook my head, then unlocked a tablet. Screenshots. His name, her name. Flirty jokes, late-night winks cloaked as work banter, location-tagged selfies in dim restaurant corners. Security cam stills from the office lot. Jack's hand on Alice's waist, Alice smiling up at him, the same dress she'd taken to Seattle. An image of them kissing in the shadows between 2 parked cars stabbed hardest. Shadows couldn't hide the familiarity in her posture. Diana set the tablet down. I followed them for weeks, she whispered. Thought I was protecting my marriage, but maybe I just wanted someone to look guiltier than I felt. Pain rimmed her eyes, and suddenly the fury that had keyed my car crumpled into grief. She sat beside me on the sofa, too close, fingertips brushing my knee. They shattered us. Maybe they should feel what we're feeling. The suggestion hung between us, sour and tempting. No. I drew back, gentle but firm. Hurting ourselves, or each other, won't fix what they broke. She exhaled, shame flushing her cheeks. You're right, I don't even know who I am lately. We don't have to let their choices decide that, I said. We sat in silence until the clock's soft ticking felt merciful. Diana walked me to the door. If you ever need to talk, she murmured, come by. Not for revenge, just to be understood. I nodded. Same offer. Outside, clouds were rolling in, slate and heavy. and a tremor burrowed under my ribs, the old storm-born fear. I drove home on autopilot. The house was quiet except for the hush of the fridge. I opened Alice's closet, pulled a suitcase free, and packed methodical, almost calm, folding dresses she loved, tucking chargers and notebooks, even the blanket she wrapped around her shoulders on movie nights. I carried everything to the front lawn, next to the mailbox that still bore both our names. Then I sat on the steps, lit a cigarette I'd sworn off years ago, and waited for the crunch of tires on gravel. She arrived 20 minutes later, brakes protesting. When she saw the suitcase, her face paled. "Sam, what is this?" I met her eyes, voice steady. "Maybe start by explaining the words scratched into our car." She turned, noticed the gouged letters as though seeing them for the first time. It was kids from the neighborhood. A couple of cars got hit. I filed a report. "Alice?" I said softly. "I know." Her shoulders sagged. "What do you know?" "Seattle, the office, the bruises, Jack." For a heartbeat, she was a statue, then her voice fell to a whisper. "It wasn't like that." I raised a hand. "Don't." Tears welled. "He forced me, Sam, threatened my career, said no one would hire me if I didn't do what he wanted." She crumpled inward, sobs racking her shoulders. Every instinct begged me to hold her, but the pictures in Diana's tablet flared behind my eyes. I didn't know what to believe. "I don't know," I admitted at last. "I can't tell what's true anymore." "Please, let me explain," she pleaded. I thought of the years, the vows, the way she once laughed in her sleep, and woke me just to share the dream. "Come inside," I said quietly. "But don't touch me. One lie and we're done." She nodded, wiping tears. Inside, while she tried to steady her voice, I felt the storm clouds tighten over my head again, wind building in invisible walls. Trust, ours, mine, felt like a flimsy shutter rattling on its hinges. And somewhere far away, thunder rolled, as if the past had come full circle, demanding to be reckoned with. The living room was dim and quiet, filled with the kind of silence that didn't invite conversation. Diana moved ahead of me, her steps careful but sure, like she'd done this walk 100 times. I followed, hands in my pockets, unsure what I'd even say next. What was there to say? My mind was trying to piece it all together, but nothing was connecting. Alice, Jack, months, lies. Diana pointed to the couch and said I could sit. I hesitated, then nodded, lowering myself slowly as if gravity was heavier in her house. She disappeared into a hallway and came back with a plain cardboard shoebox, worn at the corners, lid slightly frayed. Without a word, she sat on the armrest of a chair across from me and placed the box on the coffee table. "You really want to see it?" she asked. Her voice had changed, less edge, more exhaustion. I nodded, even though every part of me wanted to run. She opened the lid and pulled out a handful of printed photos, tossing them lightly onto the table, not violently, just like someone who'd already cried enough tears. The photos fluttered like fallen leaves. My eyes flicked over them, heart already pounding. One was of Alice and Jack sitting at a small restaurant table, her hand resting on his. Another showed them walking out of a hotel, heads down, his hand on the small of her back. There were screenshots next, messages between Jack and Alice. Most were mundane, some not so much. "Miss you already. Last night was beyond words. I wish we could just run away, leave everything behind." And from Alice. "Every time I see him, I feel like I'm drowning in guilt, but I still go." My throat was dry. I couldn't look away. "She never meant to tell you," Diana said. "She was going to keep it buried. Probably would have gone on pretending forever." I picked up one of the photos. Alice was smiling. That same smile she used when she came home from work or leaned over the stove while cooking pasta. Except here it was for someone else. My stomach turned. "When did you find out?" I asked. "Almost 4 months ago," she said. "Jack got careless, left his phone on the bathroom sink. One message, just one, and it all unraveled." "You confronted him?" She nodded. "I gave him a choice. End it or I'd end everything. He swore it was over, begged. I even believed him. For a while. She stared out the window for a second, her jaw tight. And then Seattle. It all lined up now. Alice's sudden coldness, the new wardrobe, the distant look in her eyes, that trip, and that night when she came home looking like she'd been through war. I glanced at the bruises in the photos. One showed her arm in profile, faint purple marks wrapped around it like vines. Another showed a close-up of her cheek, red and raw. I wanted to be sick. You hit her, I said, not accusing, just stating. I did, Diana said, unblinking. I lost it. I saw her in the parking garage after they got back. She was laughing on the phone. With him, I assume. I just snapped. I know I shouldn't have. That's not who I am. I didn't say anything. My brain felt like it was in pieces. She leaned back, arms crossed. Look, I'm not proud of it. I don't expect sympathy, but she wasn't innocent either. She knew. She knew about me, knew about our kids. You have kids? I asked. 2, 7, and 4, she replied. We've got photos of her holding them. Birthday parties, Christmas. She was at our house, ate our food, smiled at my kids, and still... She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. I sat there in silence, staring at the edge of the coffee table, trying to breathe through the storm that had taken root inside me. This wasn't just betrayal. This was years being rewritten. This was history being undone. Why are you showing me this? I finally asked. Because someone deserves to know the truth, she said. And because you looked like a man who didn't want to keep living in the dark. She stood and walked toward the kitchen. You want coffee? I shook my head. I didn't trust myself to drink anything without throwing up. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this, I admitted quietly. She returned with a glass of water, placing it on the table. That's the worst part. There's no manual, no next steps, just survival. The rest of the afternoon passed in a kind of numb haze. I didn't cry, didn't yell. I just sat, letting it all wash over me like freezing rain. Diana told me more, how Jack had started staying late more often, claiming work dinners and strategy meetings, how he'd started buying new cologne, how Alice had shown up in a different dress every time they met. She knew too much, had seen too much, and I believed every word. When I finally left, it was nearly dark. The world outside looked the same, but everything had changed. I drove home on autopilot, headlights cutting through the early evening fog. I sat in the driveway for a long time, staring at the front porch like it belonged to someone else. Inside, the lights were on. Alice was in the kitchen, humming softly, chopping something on the cutting board. For a second, it looked normal, peaceful, but I couldn't step through the door. Instead, I walked around the side of the house and sat on the back steps. I needed air, space, answers. I didn't sleep that night. I watched her from the hallway, listened to her soft breathing, the gentle rise and fall of her chest. The same chest I used to fall asleep against, the same hands that used to wipe tears from my face. Now it felt like touching her would burn. I went to work the next morning like nothing happened. I couldn't say anything yet. Not until I figured out what I wanted to do. I wasn't the type to explode, to scream, to throw things. But the pain? God, it was sharp. Like a knife twisting slowly every time I remembered her laugh in those photos. She texted me around noon. Thinking about you. Let's do something fun this weekend. Just us. I didn't reply. That night, I said I had to work late and drove to a park instead. I sat on a bench under a street lamp, watching the wind push the leaves and waves. It reminded me of that night after the tornado, the way nature could be quiet one moment and deadly the next. I opened my laptop. For the first time in days, I signed into the AI chat again. She cheated, I typed. I know it now. The cursor blinked. Then, I'm sorry you're going through this. That pain is real. You did not deserve it. I didn't know why, but those words broke something open. My hands started shaking. What do I do now? I typed. That's up to you, it replied. But remember, whatever you choose, you're allowed to feel hurt. You're allowed to grieve. And you're allowed to heal. I stared at the screen, wondering if healing was even possible. The next morning, Alice made pancakes. Blueberry, my favorite. She acted like nothing was wrong. Smiled, kissed my cheek. I looked at her hands, wondering if they trembled when they touched him. I finally spoke, voice low. Do you love me, Alice? She looked surprised, even tilted her head. Of course I do. What kind of question is that? I nodded slowly. Just wanted to hear you say it. She leaned in, brushing a crumb from my lip. You're acting weird. Everything okay? I almost laughed. Almost, but I didn't. Later that day, I got a message from Diana. I'm filing the paperwork tomorrow. If you need anything, someone to talk to, I get it. You're not alone. I sat on that message for hours, then replied, Thanks, I think I might need that. Because I didn't know what would happen next. I didn't know if I'd stay or leave, if I'd forgive or fall apart. But I knew this. Pretending nothing happened would kill me. One lie at a time. And whatever Alice thought she had hidden was already unraveling. The days that followed felt like walking through a maze with no exit. Waking up next to Alice, pretending to smile, making coffee while my mind looped through everything I knew now. Every glance she gave me felt rehearsed, every touch like a performance for a man she no longer respected, but didn't have the courage to leave. I kept hearing Diana's words. She was going to keep it buried. And the thing that haunted me most was how easily she could. If I'd never met Diana, if I hadn't followed my gut, I would still be living a lie, loving a woman who loved someone else behind my back. Alice's behavior didn't change. That scared me. She still laughed at my corny jokes, still kissed me goodnight, still asked me if I wanted to rewatch that crime series we both liked. But now I couldn't watch her without wondering what face she wore when she was with him. If she laughed at his jokes too. If she touched his face the way she touched mine. That Friday evening, she brought home Thai food, my favorite. We sat on the couch like any other night, a movie playing softly in the background. She leaned her head against my shoulder, and I fought the urge to pull away. You've been quiet lately, she said gently. Long week? I swallowed hard. Yeah, just a lot on my mind. She nodded and rubbed my arm. Well, I'm here if you ever want to talk. I turned my head slightly and watched her for a moment. Her eyes didn't flinch. She was good at this, maybe too good. Later that night, when she went to shower, I sat at the dining table and stared at my wedding band. They used to feel like a symbol of unity. Now it felt like a joke. I opened my phone and scrolled through my recent messages. There was one from Diana sent earlier that afternoon. I signed them. Jack thinks I'm bluffing. He'll figure it out soon enough. She attached a photo of the documents, divorce papers. The weight of it hit me harder than I expected. I hadn't made any decisions yet, but seeing her move forward stirred something in me. Something I didn't want to admit. Envy. She had clarity. I had chaos. Over the next week, I started pulling away. Not noticeably, not yet. I stopped initiating affection. I stopped asking her how her day was. I stopped pretending. I watched instead, listened more carefully. Every phone call, every trip to the grocery store, every moment when she slipped away to the back porch for air. One night, I watched her through the window, pacing with her phone pressed to her ear, her voice hushed but animated. I couldn't hear what she was saying, but I didn't need to. The way she smiled, the way she turned away from the house, it told me everything. She was still talking to him. That night, when she climbed into bed, I asked her, Do you ever think people can really change? She blinked at me, caught off guard. What do you mean? I mean, if someone lies or cheats, do you think they can ever go back to being who they were before? She frowned. That's a strange question. Is it? She rolled onto her side and traced her fingers along my arm. I think people can change if they want to, but the past doesn't just disappear. I nodded. Number it doesn't. She stared at me for a long moment, then asked, Is there something you're not telling me? There it was. Irony in its purest form. I shook my head. Not yet. That weekend, I arranged to meet Diana at a small park on the edge of town. We sat on a bench near the lake, the kind of spot you'd pick for a first date, not for shared betrayal. She's still in touch with him, I said quietly. Diana didn't react. She just nodded, staring at the water. I watched her pacing outside last night, laughing like she didn't have a husband inside. She won't stop, she said, not unless something forces her to. I think I'm done, I admitted, but I don't know how to leave without setting everything on fire. You think staying's any better? She asked, eyes meeting mine. Staying is like letting the fire smolder inside you until it eats everything good. I sighed. I hate that you're right. She handed me a small envelope. I printed everything in case you ever want to confront her. I took it, the weight of it heavier than it should have been. Thanks. When I got home, Alice was in the bedroom, folding laundry. She smiled when I walked in, holding up one of my old college t-shirts. Remember this? She asked. You wore it every weekend for 2 years? I looked at the shirt and nodded. I remember. She laid it on the bed and looked up at me. Are we okay? I hesitated. Why wouldn't we be? I don't know. You've just been somewhere else lately. I thought about lying, but I couldn't. Because I found out, I said softly. Her face froze. Found out what? Seattle, the affair, Jack. She said nothing for a long time, just stared, the color draining from her face. She finally whispered, but the words died before they reached me. How long? I asked. Her eyes welled with tears. It's over. It ended months ago. You're still talking to him. No. She stopped, wiped her face. I needed closure. I laughed bitterly. Closure? She stepped closer. Please, let me explain. I don't need explanations, I said. I needed honesty, months ago. Her hands trembled. I didn't want to hurt you. Then why did you? Tears streamed down her cheeks, and for a moment, I almost softened. But then I remembered everything. Diana's bruises, the photos, the messages, the lies layered on top of lies. Was any of it real? I asked. Yes, she sobbed. You are everything to me. I made a mistake. I shook my head. A mistake is forgetting to lock the front door. A mistake isn't flying across the country to sleep with my best friend. She collapsed onto the bed, face buried in her hands. I don't know why I did it. I felt invisible, like I was fading. And cheating made you feel alive? She didn't answer. I walked out of the room and sat on the edge of the living room couch. I stared at our wedding photo on the mantel, her in that white dress, laughing like she had everything ahead of her. Like we had everything ahead of us. Maybe we did. But she chose to burn it down. She came out an hour later, still crying, holding the envelope Diana had given me. She must have opened it. Who gave this to you? She asked. I looked up slowly. Someone who knew the truth before I did. She sank into the chair across from me, silent. I'm leaving, I said. Not tonight, but soon. I just wanted you to know. She nodded as if she'd already prepared herself for it. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't reply. I didn't know if I ever could. A few days later, I packed a suitcase and left the key on the counter. I didn't leave a note. I didn't need to. She knew. And I was done being the only one holding on. I stayed at a friend's place while I figured things out. Diana checked in from time to time, not to talk about Jack or Alice, just to ask how I was sleeping, if I'd eaten, if I needed space. In the quiet that followed, I started to remember who I was before everything unraveled. Before betrayal hollowed out my chest. I started going on walks again. I started writing. Nothing major, just journal entries. And for the first time in months, I started healing. One evening, I got a text from Diana. He signed the papers. It's final. I stared at it for a long time, then replied, Good, you deserve peace. She sent a simple heart emoji. Maybe there was something on the other side of this storm. Not with Diana, not yet, but with myself. A future where I could breathe again. A future where love didn't come with secrets. And maybe that was enough for now.